Are we streaming yet?
Twitter is streaming.
Twitter's streaming. Hello, Twitter people. Facebook?
No.
Okay, LinkedIn is live.
LinkedIn's up and running. And I see Facebook is, but it has not sent me a notification.
That's
so-
all right.
Yeah.
We can wait for
It's
that
a little late
tomorrow.
on the notification. Okay, we're about to start the
All right,
Gillmor
so
game.
quiet, please. Tina, go
And-
ahead.
We're mute
He
is all.
said quiet, okay?
All right, we'll take two. Really quiet, please.
Here we go. Mute is off, and we're gonna go in 3. Wait, shoot, I need you on the screen, Steve. Hang on. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Mute is off, and we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. Welcome to, from sitting right next to me is Tina Chase Gillmor. Yeah.
Hi. How are you?
That was a pretty good gasp after he said your name.
What's that?
You kind of made a big gasping sound after he said your name.
Oh, because I don't like to be first, and then I have to scramble to. Well, it's complicated. It's not that complicated. It always feels complicated to me. All
I
right.
think I'm shocked Frank didn't say that's what she said after that statement.
Right, but are we going to start the show over again, or am I just going to turn
No,
Keith's mic off?
This comedy is so good. You don't want to mess around with
Yeah,
this.
that's right.
No,
Okay,
we're
so
good.
from London, England is Frank Radis. Welcome, Frank.
That's what she said. Hi, gangsters. It's always a pleasure.
What time is it in London, Frank?
It's not late. 7 o'clock. The time change was on your end this time.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because
That
I
was-
went to my iPhone when I was doing the invite, and I saw what time it was here and what time it was there, and I put that into the invite. Now,
Which-
what happened? I have no idea. Maybe there was a time change after I sent the invite.
I think there was.
Gremlins.
But-
It's gremlins.
Okay, well, that's
Very curious. Okay.
okay. Welcome to from the state of Washington. Is what is that guy's name? Michael Markman.
This is Michael Markman reporting from the state of Washington.
Yay.
Yes, but you need to have a little bit more for the lower.
Oh, I do. Okay. This is Michael Markman still reporting from the state of Washington.
Perfect. Okay. From the outlying state of Georgia, now considered to be a toss-up for Trump, is Brent Leary.
No, we're just a toss-up.
That's not what the year-out polls say. They say that he's leading.
Toss-up.
Sounds like a tossed salad to me.
Brent's reporting, and he says it's a toss-up.
So he will not acknowledge the inevitability of the Trumpster.
I acknowledge the what happened will happen again.
Ah, excellent. That's a significant statement.
And to our British viewers, Americans don't use the
There he
word.
goes again. I'm gonna turn your mic off.
Oh, I want to hear what he had to say.
I do too, but after I introduce him.
Ah,
All right, from the framework of Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriand.
Hi, guys. Today I want to be an aviator.
Ooh. Like Howard Hughes?
Okay.
kind of?
What's that?
Howard Hughes?
Just like it. Just like it.
you have to be a recluse also then.
Well,
Jars of
only
those
at the
jars
end.
are those jars of pee behind you?
Oh.
Only at the end.
Oh.
In the middle years, he was both an aviator and
And a pee guy.
of Catherine Hepburn, I think.
Among others.
Tracy, among others, yeah. Yeah, he had a pretty good life. I mean, yeah. Time gets weird at the end.
I saw 2 of his movies this week. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Hell's Angels and Scarface.
Yeah, those were good one. They were good.
Scarface was his movie? No, it was his.
Yes.
studio.
Are
He
you talking
produced
about
it.
the 1931 or something? Or
Yes, 1931. He produced it.
with
Howard
Edward G.
Hawks
Robinson?
Yeah,
No,
see?
Paul
really?
Muni in a brilliant performance. Paul Muni is
Oh, Paul Muni.
Oh,
Okay.
mm.
just
he
so
was good.
charismatic in the role.
I thought he was
Quick
third base.
trivia question. How did Howard Hughes make his money initially?
Oil?
Oil field services. He
Oh
I
yeah,
don't-
the drill
the
bit.
drill. The
Yeah.
drill bit. Yeah.
Okay, so now the punishment has been delivered from the state of Palo Alto. It's Keith Tier. Welcome.
It's such a pleasure to be here on this fine Sunday. And I
Keith,
was
can
going to
you do me
say
a favor?
to our
Would
British,
you clarify something for our British viewers about what Americans say?
yes, I would. You know, Americans talk about a toss-up, and the British meaning of the first part of that has a completely different connotation. And I won't tell you what it is because it's rude, but a
Is
toss-up
it what
is-
happens after a pub crawl?
if you go home alone, yes, possibly.
Don't be a tosser.
No, that's not rude.
I'm staying out of it.
And what would the British equivalent be of Americans toss up?
The British equivalent would be a 50-50 outcome.
Really?
And that's
You guys invented English and that's all you got?
All we got. The Germans are the best. They have highly descriptive words that all join together into one word.
well, that's the first time I've heard the Germans have got the best.
Yeah, but they have mock snakes.
The Yiddish is best.
Words that are this long. Yeah.
Okay.
Schadenfreude.
Weltanschauung.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about?
Two
German.
great shows on the stream right now. Two great shows.
What shows?
So there's one called The Killer, which is on Netflix, which is absolutely worth your time.
No spoilers.
No spoilers at all, but it's David Fincher and Michael Fassbender's stars. It's so good. Worth
Shot on
watching.
the iPhone.
I don't know.
His last film was shot on the iPhone.
Yeah, I don't think this one was. This one really looks like a high quality movie too, which I really like. And the other one is a movie called Reptile. It is so bizarre with Justin Timberlake of all people and Alicia Silverstone and
What?
and who is that guy that played in No Country for Old Men?
Tommy Lee Jones?
No, the killer.
Javier
Oh.
Bardem?
Banderas.
Yeah, it's so good.
Michael, what was it?
Javier Bardem.
Mm.
It's a really, really good movie. So anyway, there you go. That's all I got for the entire show.
Wow.
Excellent.
Where will we find Reptile, Frank?
You know, I want to say Reptile's also on Netflix. So both of them are on Netflix and enough to keep my Netflix account going, even though they raised the price of it here in the UK again.
By the way, Keith, thanks for the hat tip about the Jason Kylar. However, this is something that I've been doing-
Keelar, by the way, it's Keelar.
Okay, whatever. Luckily, I don't care. And the thing about what I've decided to do with Substack, as far as citations, is I'm taking a page from your newsletter book, which is, I mean, this is ostensibly what you say. I'm not sure I believe it, but I'm not putting any kind of recommendation behind what I'm doing. It's simply, I haven't had enough time to even read it.
Yeah. No, I knew that, but I only became aware of it because of you. That was the hat tip.
I know, but I had to read it now because of the hat tip.
You can't get a
I
hat
just
tip
read
unless
it,
you.
and I was
do the
right the
thing.
first time. It's okay, but you clipped the relevance stage, except the idea of the everything. What? See, you don't even remember.
The everything, it's basically his main point from the point of view of Warner Media is you can't compete with Netflix unless you can have enough content to sustain 200 million people wanting to pay you every month. That's his main point.
Right. So the main point is that you can't compete with Netflix.
That's pretty obvious stuff, don't you think?
I think he has a concrete.
Nobody can actually compete because nobody has the 100 or 250 million viewers necessary to avoid churn, basically.
Yeah, but interesting enough, and this is weird to me, but Hulu these days is owned by Disney, if I understand that rightly. And is Warner Media still independent?
No, it's Discovery.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
and by the way, the Hulu Disney combined app is going to come out in the next month or so.
Right. So that's why it's weird. He argues that the only thing in existence that they could all collectively use to compete with Netflix is Hulu. And that horse is bolted, right? So he really is exactly saying what Steve said, which is there isn't a plan here. And he's making the point that unless Disney and Peacock and Warner and all of them collaborate against Netflix, they have no hope.
Yeah,
Well,
they're gonna all be
factor.
bundled. They're gonna all be working against each other, but in a bundle that makes it look like they're working together.
And Verizon already kicked that off this week. I think you might have, somebody on this show. Maybe
I mentioned it. Yeah, the box.
Verizon is doing the first mini bundle with a discount. And so basically, I get my fiber from AT&T. They bundle in HBO Max for free. So I can use my AT&T login to get HBO Max for free. That's just a little glimmer in the eye of what the future might look like. I agree with you. And
there's also isn't that exactly what Amazon does? They bundle in their streaming service with Prime, so you don't have an incentive to churn away from Prime because you got all the other Prime benefits.
You're paying for it.
You're paying for the stream for the what is it? Shipping. Thank you.
Yes, but it's also Comcast's box, which we also talked about last week, which is sort of an analog bundle, if you will.
It's also gone. We had it in 3 locations. We're down to 0.
Really?
Oh, well done.
Now, here's the other thing that keeps Netflix in place. I mean, not only do they have the revenue stream and the viewers, but as churn happens, Netflix is the last one that you will disconnect.
Yeah.
So you'll be churning among all of the other streamers, but Netflix is anchored in your firmament.
But I know some people that have churned away from Netflix, and then Netflix has done what it always does and come back with some really good shows, and they've gone back to it. So it's almost like, I can't quit you.
No, it's I think it's more you maybe you get your subscription for a month to watch the good stuff, and then once you've done watching it, you turn it off like I do. I flip all through these things. Why spend $12 a month or $20 a month on something and you really don't watch it that much? But if you get it for 1 or 2 months, you watch everything that's there, then you go to the next thing, and while you're at the next one, new stuff will be dropping on that one. So you just switch over. Why own all this stuff all the time? You can only watch so much of this stuff at one time.
Well, until they catch you doing that, and
no, Amazon is like you do it. Like
that's churning. That's churning.
But what is it, a mini churn? Because 2 months later I'm back.
No, but they have to.
Your strategy, Brent, is rational. The only thing that keeps people on multiple services is cultural currency. If everyone's talking about a show, if you can resist joining that conversation for a month,
I think it's more
no problem for me.
That's why I was on Comcast forever. Is that they just basically took care of most of it, and I didn't have to think about working for the man.
I wonder how you remember to cut it off, because I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times where I tried something or trial or whatever, and then somehow I'm still paying for it. I just forget,
Yeah, set a
They,
notification,
they
Tina.
count on that every subscription, from your gym to
Yeah,
They
and
count on
electric
me.
company.
and try.
Count on me.
I should have recorded since I didn't need to because I heard it 3 times. The script that they put you through when you're trying to escape from one of the broadband services. In this
I don't know
case,
about that, but I'll tell you the beauty of why I like having Amazon Prime, and then you can subscribe to channels under that. They make it so easy to get out of it. There's an actual a selection. You can just turn off auto renew, so you can renew and then turn off auto renew right at the time you renew, and you don't have to worry about it. I love that. That's why I like how easy they make it compared to some other services. But then the flip side of all of this is the biggest competitors to me to like Netflix and all that is Amazon and Apple, because they don't rely on this stuff to make money. They have these other businesses that subsidize all this content stuff. Like Amazon Prime is subsidized by AWS. Apple is subsidized by Keith buying all that stuff. So they don't rely on it.
That's true. That is true. It's funny though, if you sit around and you try and figure out which one has the best content, who's got the largest block of really good content. To me, it's Netflix and Amazon. Apple's coming up pretty strong. I think they've got some good stuff.
Amazon doesn't have the largest.
But it has some good stuff.
But it's number 3 after you've gone to Netflix until you can't stand it anymore.
I thought I couldn't stand Netflix. I actually had gotten to that point, and all of a sudden, The Killer and Reptile, both of those shows.
I think they feed you this as part of your super influencer job.
Yeah, they send me money.
Influence.
I wish.
Brett, your strategy doesn't work for Amazon because you want to keep Amazon Prime for all the other Amazons. I know you buy everything from BH Photo Video.
I love B&H. Do you buy from B&H?
Channel.
No, but it's not Amazon Prime. That's the no-brainer. It's still a no-brainer. It's their channel selection.
Oh, the channel selection. Yeah.
So I like the BritBox. I subscribe on and off to that probably three to 4 times a year, like on, off. I do it because I look, this is all right. They got something I want to see, like Disney. I was on the Disney bundle for a couple of years until it went from like $11.99 to $18.99, and I don't watch it. But I'll sign up. I'll sign up for it later this month because they had the Doctor Who stuff. I watched that for a month, and then I'm.
What about ESPN? What about ESPN Plus?
I don't miss that. That was part of the bundle. I just let it go. I don't miss that because I can get the 30 for 30 stuff like 5 other different places. So this subscription stuff is like really has changed the way I look at not just content, but everything you subscribe to. It's like, how much money am I spending on this?
Oh, you're spending cable money, my friend.
Oh, well, we're like above cable money at this point when you think about it, because you got to throw in your Google or YouTube TV. Remember when that was like $45 a month a couple of years ago? Now it's $72 a month.
I can't live without YouTube TV though.
Well, you got to have something, right? You got. Yeah. I haven't had cable for years, so I switched over to this stuff. The first time I did it, it was through AT&T. Remember when they first had the Direct TV Plus, and they were like, with your AT&T wireless subscription, you pay $10 extra and you get Direct TV. That lasted for like 6 months before it went from 10 to 25 to 45. I don't even know what it is now, because that's when I switched over to YouTube TV, and now that's gone up to $72 a month. I mean, so we were all happy. Oh, we can get away with the cable companies and pay less money, and Those days have been gone. We're paying.
I wonder, and I don't know the answer to this, if Hulu on the Disney bundle will end up being sort of the next generation of YouTube TV, because Hulu, because Keith and I, when we started talking about this early on, which one do you choose? Do you choose Hulu for us in the UK looking at American TV? Do you choose Hulu or do you choose YouTube TV? But if Hulu does it, is it, boy, everybody's dropping like flies. What's happening here?
It's fun.
Okay. Anyway, I just don't know about.
I'm going to drop like
I'll
this.
tell you.
Okay.
That's how I'm
Nice.
dropping.
I've been having trouble trying to. I want to get rid of my my Peacock and I want to get rid of my standalone Hulu, and I can't do it because I can't get either of them here, even with a VPN or through any other service.
Wow.
So I'm not quite sure what to do. I think I have to go back to America and try and do it there with an American device. It's weird. I just want to get out of it. I can't even get them on online.
So guess what? The new Apple TV software, they have VPN software now for Apple TV.
Really?
So you actually don't need the Amazon box anymore. You can do everything on Apple TV. So I now have a UK VPN on my Apple TV, and I can watch BBC and Sky and everything without changing device.
But
Really?
you're talking about an Apple TV device?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say that again. So because I have an Apple TV, but I like a lot of the British shows. So how are you able to get the British shows?
Well, in my case, my sister lives there, and I have a British credit card, so I can sign up for British subscriptions, and then I just need the VPN to access them.
Yeah, I'll let you use mine, Brent, when you're ready. But or I'll just record all of the Doctor Who's on BBC and then put them on a file and send them.
Well,
to
we
you.
get them all late because when I was over in London last month, I was watching like all the.
When you didn't see me,
I know. Well, I wanted to, but they kept us busy. But I was watching like all this, like the shows that won't come here for months. I was able to watch them, and it was like, oh, this is cool. Then I come back here, and I'm like, back to year one of stuff. Not cool.
well, there you go.
Crickets. So
By the way, ChatGPT has an awesome strategy. Look at this.
wait, where is he? What happened?
You're not
looking at-
seeing it.
We're just looking at you, actually, a picture of you.
Oh, I turned my video off. That's why. Oh, that's weird. It's turned my video off.
Oh,
How weird.
I had Bard write a why you should subscribe to my newsletter. It was fantastic. I want to post it as soon as
Really?
Yeah, I said
you were-
write me an introduction as to why somebody should subscribe to the Radis Files. And it gave me like 5 paragraphs and a bunch of, reasons why, and then a conclusion and images. And it was great.
So I'm going to put the link to the ChatGPT in here, but Brent, you should click on this. It'll make you laugh.
Boy, this is really entertaining.
Yeah. So we'll all click on that.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is-
chat
this just
stream,
came out this
nobody can
morning.
see if they're not on the show.
I'd like to know what everyone thought of the election this past week, and anything.
I thought Trump won.
The best part of that was Saturday Night Live's cold open.
Oh no,
Yeah,
That was so good.
we haven't seen it yet. Was it good?
Hilarious. Hilarious.
I'm just talking about the cold open. I don't know about anything else, but that cold open was funny.
Timothy Chalamet was actually brilliant throughout the whole show.
I do have a question for Steve. Explain why Trump won.
He's locked up the Republican nomination.
That's true, and nobody wants to come after him, even with nothing to lose.
Ramaswamy, we like saying.
That was hilarious. I like when he went in there, and look, they even got Ego playing this guy. That was great. I'm sorry. That was one of the
was
funniest
it?
coldest open.
What was?
Do you want to
show
watch
again.
it, or do you want me to tell you? Because I think it'll be funnier if you watch it. Actually,
No, I'd like to watch it later.
okay, I won't see it.
Ramaswamy.
Then I can watch this again.
There were some, certainly some glimmers of hope for the Democrats. But you are, none of you were feeling very positive about the election?
Oh, I was on two grounds. One is it shows that the abortion issue is still salient, and the number one driver of voter sentiment, and the Democrats are using that in the way the Republicans used to use gay marriage amendments. There are now a number of states, 5 or 9 states, where they're going to put abortion measures on the ballot to drive turnout in the 2024 election. And the second ground was that anti-wokeism lost. In Virginia, they elected their first trans member of the state legislature, who was running against someone who was a proponent of anti-trans legislation. And Bashir vetoed an anti-trans bill from the GOP, and the voters ignored that. So, and in addition to that, the Moms for Liberty were thrown out of a number of school boards. So
Can you explain what you mean by Bashir did? Who's Bashir? The governor, right?
Bashir is a Democrat running in Kentucky. He barely won his first term. He won his second term by over 5%. And he was opposed by someone who was pointing out, A, that they wanted to ban abortion, which he opposed, and B, there had been a previous anti-trans bill that was voted in by the Republican legislature that Bashir had vetoed. And the fact that he vetoed it did not trump the fact that he was for abortion rights. So in every place, pretty much every place where the anti-woke agenda was on the ballot, the anti-woke agenda lost.
I'd be cautious with that analysis. I mean, I think you're describing it accurately, but you're implying a causal effect between the two, and I suspect there isn't one. I think the abortion thing is so overridingly huge that almost every other variable is not to be weighted too heavily.
No, I don't agree with that. I think
I don't think it matters.
I think the trend around abortion rights is very, very strong, and I think that, as Michael is pointing out, the trend around other counter to the red wave is also very strong.
Right, because abortion brings a certain kind of voter to the polls, and that voter is going to have a downstream effect on the rest of the ballot.
Can anybody?
Well, I think abortion is more than just a certain kind of voter. I think it has a broad spectrum of appeal for several kinds of voters, including many Republicans.
Well,
I'm not saying that a certain kind of voter. I simply mean somebody who's going to be voting against restricting abortion is likely to be voting against things that go against LGBTQ rights as well.
I hope you're right.
Well,
that hope word always gives me the willies.
Brent, you were about to say something.
I was just gonna say, why isn't this gun thing as moved the needle as much as the abortion rights thing?
well, if you got $1 million in a good survey company, we could answer that.
Well, I don't have $1 million.
Well, one of the problems is when you go to the polls, you only get one vote, and you may have a multiplicity of reasons. So, the gun thing may be part of what moves people to vote for Democrats. I'm sure that it is. But I don't think it's as strong as the abortion issue.
That's what I was wondering.
I
That's why
think
I
it
was
is certainly
kinda asking that
driving young
question.
people
Yeah.
to the Democratic column. And
Well, hold on.
I'm sure it's driving a lot of suburban women to the
Oh,
Democratic.
I'm not sure the young thing is
You
right.
can only
though.
vote for what's on the ballot. I don't think that there's the same emphasis on the ballot for gun legislation as there is for sexual monitoring and management.
Well, no, as an issue, it's not on the ballot, but there are candidates who are, well, let me put it this way. Opposing gun safety legislation does not seem to be a detriment.
So I mean, there's a complex basket of variables here, which I don't fully understand how to unpack, but I do think the poll results the week before were not total BS.
You mean the 5 swing
Yeah.
states?
So I don't think that was total BS. I do think the election results are indicative of issue-related passion, especially for women's rights, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong about that. And therefore, I do feel as if everything is still in the balance, with the preponderance of evidence suggesting Trump's going to be a very strong contender.
I read an interesting analysis this week that basically said that Americans understand the difference between a poll and a ballot. And
I agree with that. I've been saying the same thing.
Americans have been lying to pollsters for several election cycles now.
Yeah, forever.
Well, it's not necessarily lying. It's just that you know that what you say to a pollster is consequence-free. Doesn't cost you anything to say anything to a pollster. And
Exactly.
if you're a little bit pissed off, and most people think Biden is too old, they would much rather have a younger candidate. And if you want to express that with no downside, you can express that to a pollster. But when you get into the ballot box, your choice does have a consequence. And if the choice is between old Biden and old and fascist Trump, I think you make a different choice.
Yeah, but
Well,
who
yeah,
who wants a president named Nikki?
No, but the thing is, we make it.
I see what you did there, Phil.
Nice.
I think we make a different choice. But I don't know if you saw Meet the Press this morning with the chairwoman of the GOP was on, and
Rona.
Yeah, and they showed her a Trump quote from yesterday. And the Trump quote was, I mean, it could have been taken out of 1933 Germany. It was, we're going to go after the communists and the socialists. You remember that quote that said, first they came,
he called them vermin.
First they came for the communists, then, blah, blah. So it really conjured that up. And I will say, I think there's such a strong American belief in the far left being a problem, that Trump knows what he's doing when he triggers those emotions. And even though I agree with you, Michael, that there's a difference between, sorry, Dennis, you balloting and polling, the one thing you can probably rule out is someone pretending to be a Trump supporter. I mean, why would anyone?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brent.
But can we also recognize?
I'd like to hear what Brent you're agreeing with about.
No, I was just gonna say, I think there's a lot of that. I'm gonna vote for Trump, and then maybe in the secrecy of a ballot booth, not. I can see that happen, just as I can see, it happening. I'm gonna vote for so and so, and then they vote for somebody opposite. But what I wanted to say was, we're just barely a year out from this, and the freak out is just ridiculous. There's a lot of people who are answering these polls with the hope that they're going to get these polls to mean, well, Biden, so many people don't like Biden. Well, maybe he's not going to run because the polls say he doesn't have a chance. That's not going to happen. Once people realize these are the choices you're going to have, folks, they're going to be very similar to the one you had in 2020. Get over it. You hold your nose if you have to and vote. It's going to be pretty similar to what happened in 2020. Has Trump done anything to make people who didn't vote for him 4 years ago say, oh, you know what? I was wrong about that Trump dude. I'm pulling the lever this time. I haven't seen it.
This
I
week I
think there's
was
another, there's
watching
another
all
fact.
this and
Go ahead,
thinking,
Dennis.
One at a time.
I was watching all this and thinking there's a parallel here with the 1940 election, in which Franklin Roosevelt.
Whoa, of course.
Wait a minute, Dennis, who'd you vote for?
1940, yeah. It was like
it was Franklin Roosevelt going for a third term versus Wendell Willkie, and a millionaire industrialist. And Willkie wasn't a bad guy. After Roosevelt beat him, he actually made him an ambassador. But it was the same. It was the same kind of thing. The electorate was all up in arms about, well, geez, we really want to give this guy a third term because nobody's had a third term. Not even Washington had a third term. What are we doing? And prior to that, in September 1939, Germany and Russia invaded Poland, started the Second World War. Japan was very active in China and Nanking, and what it came down to is the voters said, "I'm not going to take a chance on Willkie," and Roosevelt won, and good for us that he did, because we needed an experienced hand on the tiller, and I think that's the theme of the upcoming election in 2024.
There's something else I'd like to say about polls, and this is always in the polls if you ask enough questions, but it doesn't get reported at the top line. It doesn't get into the headlines. It's not just the binary choice of A or B. There's also the question of how committed are you to A or B? There's a spectrum of commitment. So there are some people who are absolutely committed to Trump. But the last question in the Times Siena poll was, how would you vote if Trump was convicted? And they switched. Biden won by 8 points. So some of the people who will answer, I'm voting for Trump, are not cemented in as Trump voters.
So
they're
I'm-
relevant.
I'll tell you something.
I thought that was the least compelling aspect of that article. And
I'm not talking about the specific finding there.
that they
I'm talking about, just a minute, let me finish. I'm talking about the general condition that people are not cemented to the answer that they give a pollster. Some of them are, and some of them are.
What I'm saying is,
true.
I think that the number of people who are going to, if he is convicted, are going to switch from their current position regarding his culpability and the impact on the election is about zero. That's my take on it.
Can I just share with you my commemorative pin from 1939?
You were there. You were there.
Boy, you got a lot of these things.
I would double down on what you said, Steve. I think Trump might want to go to jail because he might believe that if he goes to jail, he will win the election by a larger amount than otherwise. I think he thinks, and he may be deluded in this, but I think he thinks that martyring himself and depicting the state as being anti-democratic and trying to undermine his run for the presidency is his whole game plan. And right now, if you were to ask of all the polls, who is the flakier and most likely to change their mind, I would say Biden supporters are flakier. I think Trump supporters are 100% solid. I think Biden's are not.
Well, that's just because they're Democrats. But
it's also because
I want to support your contention, Keith, because I think there's something to it. If you watch Trump's testimony, excuse me, in the trial this week, where he actually admitted to some culpability, it occurred to me that he was throwing himself on his sword for the sake of his kids. And secondarily, I think it supports your thesis as well.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Keith. And let's not forget, Dennis, that it's the poor children that were really the problem in that trial. It's just it confounds me though that this guy who has done all of these things and has all of these indictments and all of these charges and the likelihood of prison and all of these sexual misdeeds and all of this, just all of it. And then he goes out and says out in the open what he wants to do if he's elected. He wants to change the government and basically throw all of his enemies in jail. For God's sakes, people, is no one listening?
Well, that's because it's a cult. It's no longer a party.
It really is.
It is a party to them.
Nah,
I don't mean
Somebody
a-
should remove the punch bowl.
By the way, Frankie's been accused of rape, not misdeeds. So,
Well,
like,
he wasn't convicted of rape. He was not convicted of rape, and they made that point. He was convicted of not rape. It was like one step before it.
He wasn't convicted. He was found liable.
That's right. He was found liable. Yes.
And B, the judge said he committed rape.
That's right.
He did. Yes.
so
I think it was
let's-
digital.
Anyway, okay. Misspoke. Rape. Okay. Thank you.
I don't
But,
want to soften that. I don't want to soften that.
yeah.
because we shouldn't be doing that.
Well, he shouldn't be running.
You
He
know?
shouldn't be the president. He
Well,
shouldn't.
the thing is that ethics go out of the window when dogma and ideology take over. And that's true, by the way, on all sides.
Yeah,
The
Matt
minute
Gates
that-
is going to get away with it.
The minute that your brain is locked into an ideological, shell, it doesn't matter what you hear, you ignore it, or you disbelieve it, or you say, I don't give a shit. And that's where we're at with Trump. I suspect if it turns
I
out
don't think that's where
Biden-
we're at. I think that's where his
the country.
is at. No,
Yeah.
not
I don't think ideology is the right descriptor, because there is no coherent ideology to Trump. It's very much tribal, and it's very much a question of his choice of enemies, and it's a team sport. There's no, ideology has a certain intellectual heft.
No,
And I
but
don't
we
think
ignore
that's
things like
anything.
let take Hunter Biden. We're all for Biden.
Please
right?
take Hunter Biden.
And we all know that Hunter Biden is a dangerously bad actor. None of us are pro Hunter Biden.
What?
But we wouldn't dream of talking about Hunter Biden because it wouldn't serve our cause to do so.
I'm not sure that I.
No, wait. Hunter Biden is not dangerous. Hunter Biden has done some bad things. He doesn't pose any threat. He doesn't have a position of power.
No, I mean, it's dangerous to his dad's chances of winning.
There's no evidence of that.
I don't agree.
Dangerous to his own well-being.
I think it's a push at best.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
depends
push,
on
yeah,
how it's depends on how it's played.
I may be overstating the case, but I'm just saying we all are prepared to focus on what we think is required to focus on to win, and Trump's no different to us. Everyone does that because it's a battle with only one winner. So you've got to focus on the winning arguments, and you kind of don't want to talk about the bad stuff. Everyone does that. So
There isn't any Democrat who's avoided talking about Hunter Biden. They will all say very consistent things, that whatever he's guilty of, he should be tried for, and if convicted, he should be punished for. And they've also said that he suffers from addictions, and that his father has shown a great deal of compassion and love for a son who's been in trouble.
Yeah, but if they then
Democrats
said
haven't avoided that at all, they're very, very upfront about it.
if they then said that out of love and compassion, his dad facilitated and enabled him to make a lot of money from other world leaders, that crosses the line then. And then
Well, wait a minute. What about
Nobody
his
assumed that
son-in-law?
that's the case.
What about his-
The Republicans are trying very hard to make that case, but they haven't come up with anything that supports it.
I agree with Michael.
No, I also think that's true,
Yeah.
but it's a
But
legitimate.
when you
talking
say
point.
that we think something and it includes stuff that we don't think,
Oh, I don't mean we, the
then I
Gillmor.
say,
When I say
well, that's
we,
what- when you do,
I didn't mean to do that. You're right. That was the implication. That wasn't my intended implication. However, I was in Yorkshire. We have you and us and we are used in very different ways, and that's where I come from. So I sometimes use them in that way.
It's a toss-up.
What about his
As long as it
son-in-law?
isn't a toss-off.
Why has no one gone after his son-in-law for the money he got from Saudi Arabia? Why does that just linger?
because it's table stakes.
Yeah.
Everybody in Congress is doing that.
It's not quite that high.
We do deserve better.
Menendez is, seems like a perfectly legitimate Democrat.
Except for the gold bars.
Yeah, exactly. So,
oh, I just happen to have these gold bars.
Did you see Did you guys see Ramaswamy?
Ramaswamy, we love that name.
In the GOP debate, in his summing up, he did this bizarre section where he said, "Hey, we know Biden isn't running. Come on, own up. Who is it going to be? Is it?" And he named some names. Is it Michelle Obama? Is it? He named about 4 names, and it kind of came from nowhere, like this huge conspiracy theory that the Democrats are faking that Biden's going to run only to produce the real candidate later.
This is a great Netflix movie, I'm telling you, or series.
Yeah, this is why there was a strike. It was that people were trying to be reminded that there's a reason why we have writers, not reality.
Has anyone explained that, what Ramaswamy did? I mean, it was so
Ramaswamy.
And it just seemed like, it was like some,
What do you mean what he did?
He talked. That's all he had to do.
He's a tech guy.
I think it's the tech guy, Steve. You're right. It's like in tech.
So what are you asking? What he did? What do you mean by what he did?
When he said, we know that Biden's not going to run, come on, who is it? I mean, that was a bizarre thing.
They blanked him out.
No, I think it's the influence. You know who has influence over him is Chamath Palihapitiya.
Another great.
Yeah, it's a great name to learn to say.
Ramaswamy Palihapitiya.
But what it is in tech, when you're doing tech strategy,
right on the edge here.
When you're doing tech strategy, which I've been doing for 40 years, you have these think tanks internally to do with competition, and you gameplay all the things that might happen to screw you up. And I guarantee they've gameplayed that Biden isn't the candidate. And it's in his head as a conspiracy of like, what would be the really clever thing for the Democrats to do? Suddenly at the last minute, Michelle Obama pops up and wins by a landslide, which is probably true, by the way. She probably would.
She don't want to win. She don't want to do that. I mean, it's so obvious that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But I guarantee they've gameplayed it, and it's in his head.
Oh, Michelle,
Keith, the difference between game playing and tech and this is that in tech you don't say those things.
No, you don't.
Public.
No, never. Exactly.
Otherwise the VCs will go, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
well,
there goes the money.
There's always an executive that doesn't have sufficient nuance and ends up taking literally the gameplay, and I think he might be one of those.
I think he says what he's like a stand-up comedian trying to figure out the next 5 minutes of his act. He's got 2 minutes right now, and he goes and farts out whatever kind of rings possibly true to him, because he's
desperate.
He's an entertainer.
Got enough money to stay on the stage.
I'm sorry that Nikki Haley's comments were buried under a lot of noise, because she made a really good point. The guy is scum.
I think that did actually get out there quite a bit.
Well, no, I think a lot of people heard it, but when you actually heard her do it, it was sort of buried inside.
I couldn't hear it, but they kept repeating it and lower thirding it.
Yeah.
Scott, along with the eye roll.
But I think Steve is onto something. There's something about Ramaswamy that is just looking for attention and looking to perform in his what does he get, 90 seconds, 30 seconds? He's looking for something that's going to get some play and get some pickup and keep his name.
What about the way the first thing he said, he starts going after the moderators and well, why don't you guys say, why don't we have Tucker Carlson or some of the other guys? Why are we on NBC and why we got to take questions from? That was planned and rigged. And
not only was it planned, but it was incredibly stupid. Kristen Welker smartest people in the media
Yeah,
ever.
nobody's gonna take that bait. I mean, that was
No,
stupid.
she's gonna rip his heart out, like while he's asleep.
This is stupid.
The other thing is that
It's hubris.
Ramaswamy has gone from someone nobody ever heard of to someone everybody hates.
That's
Well,
a good way to win an election.
except the Silicon Valley, anti-woke lobby loves him. They love Nikki Haley more, though.
Well, that's because she's got a chance.
Yeah, if Trump wins, Ramaswamy becomes an ambassador.
Oh, who cares?
Will we ever
Well-
get to a point where we don't have to hear this term woke and anti-woke? This is that is such an annoying term, and particularly the way that they have cleaved onto it like it's supposed to mean something.
See, that's the
Ah.
channel that I'd like to churn off of.
It's so annoying.
The term died down a bit. I don't think people are using it as much.
Well,
Oh,
Cisco, whatever his name is.
what's his name? DeSantis. He's still woke and anti-woke and woke. Ugh.
Well, this is all part and parcel of why the Republicans did so badly in the off-year elections. It's because they have no finger on the pulse of America. They're talking woke and anti-woke and all. Nobody cares about that. Nobody's
Ted Cruz was on Bill Maher on Friday night, and there was a whole subsection about that was more substantive. Bill Maher kind of entertains the right and tries to debate them, and there was this whole section which was about what Cruz called the success of cultural Marxism, and he tried to make the point that anti-racism, anti-homophobic ideas, identity politics, and the whole bundle is basically cultural Marxism, and that what the Republican Party needs to do is to stand up for common sense against cultural Marxism. So I think underneath the labels of woke and unwoke, it is true that liberation politics, that let's say we go back to civil rights times and we look at the civil rights movements, liberation politics has evolved from collective movements for social change into movements for individual recognition of difference. And that is a very different political animal. And it gets the label woke because it says, I'm better than you because I'm fill in the blank. Not I'm equal to you, but you can't know me because I'm fill in the blank, because you're not fill in the blank. And we get to this individualized view of history where there isn't really a chance to fix structural problems anymore. It's just about being nice to each other. And I don't think that is cultural Marxism. I think it's individualism.
I have no idea what cultural Marxism means.
I think it's a completely made up thing. And if I were trying to define this, I think I'd also go back to the 1960s, but I would take just the opposite tact, because I think what it really was Khrushchev's efforts to spark wars of liberation in the third world. That was cultural Marxism, not what was going on in the civil rights movement.
Why do you call it cultural?
For lack of a better term. Well, here's the thing, though. I think our boy Ted Cruz is just trying to find another way to smear the left with the Marxist, communist, Soviet label. It's made up. I mean, he was out on a test drive that night.
It also said.
Go ahead, Frank.
Well, I was just going to say, had anybody heard that Kevin McCarthy was not going to run again, and that in fact his position about the new Speaker of the House is it seems kind of tenuous, and but he's also agreed to go out and help him fundraise. So it's weird.
Just before we move the topic, let me just say one thing about the last topic. I do think that it goes back to the 60s, as you said, Dennis. I mean, we all grew up. I was 10 in 64, and I can tell you that we all were very strongly pro-feminist, pro-gay rights, we not just in our heads, but we marched, we wrote things, we had meetings, we were activists for all of those things. And large movements took place around the Vietnam War as well. So there was this sense that you could change the world in a good way. And I think now there's a sense that you can't change the world in a good way, but you've got to protect my individual rights. And this is what I think of as postmodernism coming out of modernism. I'm a sociologist by degree. Postmodernism is that evolution from modernism was let's understand the whole. Postmodernism is let's understand me. And I think that move from us to me, there is something self-defeating about it. And so there is an interesting conversation to have there.
Well, but so what about, doesn't socioeconomics enter into the idea that it would change from us to me? Wouldn't, if you were at the low end of the scale in the socioeconomic system, that you would be more inclined to be about us rather than me?
Well, that is true. I mean, I can tell you my entire being as a human being is derived from the fact that I grew up in a poor neighborhood and didn't have a lot. And so that sense of there would never be a me because I was powerless. So there can only be an us. And I can remember going on coal miners' picket lines and steelworkers' picket lines because I wanted to identify with something bigger than me. But I don't think that's the world anymore. I think the world is evolved to a place where the success of the individual is all assumed to be within the hands of the individual.
Yeah, except for those 2 strikes that were just settled in California.
Yeah, those are kind of
Well done, Frank.
Yeah, I think what you're identifying is an inflection point that we've just crossed, perhaps from me back to us.
Could be.
And remember, it's not just me versus us; it's us versus them.
Pink Floyd, us.
Money.
And don't forget that us is US, which spells,
See, I mean, there are those who claim. There are those who claim, and for instance, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is one, that all of the structural disadvantages that Black people faced are settled, and so there should be no collective attention paid to Black disadvantage. And there are other people, largely Black people, who say, no, that hasn't been settled. There's still a huge amount of structural racism built into the country. We haven't crossed the boundary that Keith imagines we've crossed. It's still out there, and it still needs to be worked on.
I don't know what's going on in America, but you should see the racism here with the Palestinian and Israeli communities. It's insane. When 300,000 people get out and march, more than once in 2 weeks, it's just crazy.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but Michael, what you just said is right. In fact, what I was trying to argue is that we still need us because there is still that those things are not settled. So the move from us to me is actually totally self-defeating.
I don't know. I think there's a little too much to be rotated on as far as what Dennis calls K-waves, and not enough of an understanding about the basic human emotions that we all feel in a time where the possibility of having any kind of impact on our lives or the people we care about is so challenged. I don't necessarily think that this is some big transition point. That I think it's more likely that they're come into play. I mean, I remember being at Shea Stadium when the Beatles were on the second base platform, and to me, it just said very loudly, whatever you think about our powerlessness, it's bullshit. we don't know what's going to happen with this, but it sure is something unique.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, just open your eyes. Don't look for narratives. Look for not stepping your foot in the wrong pile.
Well, it
But
sounds like another inflection point to me.
Well, that was
That was
an inflection
yeah.
point.
when would you date the unraveling of that? Like the difference between the 60s.
I don't think it's been unraveled.
You don't think the 80s and the 90s are?
No, I think that there have been people who, had a talent for triggering those feelings of hope and passion and electricity, and at the same time had a sense of humor.
It happened in 2016, minus the sense of humor.
I think one answer that I would give to Keith is Richard Nixon. He identified a large group of people who were not caught up in whatever it is the Beatles were expressing and directing, and he called them the silent majority. And he appealed to people who were a little upset, a little frightened by sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that was the basis of his campaign.
Yeah, and he won overwhelming, and then 2 years later, he was driven out of town on a rail.
Right, because of his personal failings. But
Ooh.
very soon after Nixon came Reagan, who tried to appeal to the same block of people very successfully, and he was not driven out of town on a rail.
But I'm more interested in, broadly speaking, how the oppressed who want to be in a better place think about it. And if I'd love to know what you all think about, take a variable like the use of the N-word by African Americans to self-describe. That could never have happened in the civil rights era. It just could not have happened. But when rap came along, somehow that word as a self-description was embraced. And that is almost like saying, okay, you've trapped us in this prison, we're going to embrace it.
No, that's not quite right, Keith.
Well, that's why I'm saying it. I wanted to trigger a reaction.
Those words were being said long
trying to
before they got
trigger.
on a rap record.
Well, I wanted a comment about
It just got on a rap record that made it known to everybody else. But it was going on long before that, tell you that.
Yeah, it was kind of like Richard Pryor.
Yeah. I mean, yes, certainly Richard Pryor was using the word before rap came along or before rap became popular. Also,
you know what? If you think about it,
parallels.
It was used during the Civil War. It goes way back.
But doesn't it depict what I'm describing, which is an acceptance of your status? Therefore, you're going to use it as a strengthening weapon. But it's not about changing the world to be better. It's about acknowledging the world is screwed up.
No, I think it may also be trying to take that weapon away from the people who are using it against you.
Yes,
you find that in the gay community as well. They will use words that are used as cudgels against homosexuals to describe themselves. For a while, gay people didn't want to call themselves gay. Then they would say, "We're here, we're queer." Get used to it. You find the same thing in the disabled community. For a while, cripple was a term of opprobrium. Some of them will be very proudly say, "Yes, I'm crippled." It's a question of trying to, diminish that weapon.
I agree with that. No, I totally agree. But it does tell you that the world has evolved from what you might think of as integrationism or fighting for acceptance to separatism. In other words, I'm separate and proud of it.
I think it's interesting that who determines what is okay. There was a TV show which called Queer Eye for the straight guy, which basically developed into what became Bravo. Yet you haven't seen that happen in other sort of negative, influential types of words. You haven't seen that.
What is Bravo?
It's a network.
Yeah,
BravoCon. It's a big deal.
What do you mean by it developed into Bravo? I just don't know.
Bravo as a network was nothing until Queer Eye for the Straight Guy became their center piece for their network. And my point is, it was embraced by this network. It became a big public deal. It helped to create what the network became. But then I haven't seen that with other words. You haven't seen it with the N word. There is. I don't think there's a TV show. I think there's a movie called The N Word. Now,
I don't think so.
No, but so there's my point.
No, but that's the good thing, which is I refuse to be separate is a very different sentiment to I'm separate and proud of it. Because I refuse to be separate demands change. I'm separate and proud of it only demands people's ideas to change, but nothing in the real world.
Yeah, but do you think there's no fact that people feel that they've got a quantum of acceptance already?
I don't think so. That's Michael's point, where the judge who said it's all settled. No, it isn't. I agree with Michael. It isn't all settled.
It doesn't have to be settled, but you can have a bit. You can realize a bit of acceptance and say, I'm going to go live my life on these terms because there's so much else to do.
It's not an easy thing to understand what's in your heart. It's not an easy thing to understand what's in your heart that you don't necessarily think you're proud of.
Correct.
I think
there are people and there are moments in history where that is made visible to people, and they don't expect it, and they don't. I mean, like look at what's her name, the comedian on TV.
That narrows it down.
Well, she.
I'm glad you said it.
Comedian on TV.
Hey, every name.
Sarah Silverman.
Or
Sarah Silverman.
No.
I think interestingly enough, it hasn't
Ellen,
the.
Thank you, Ellen.
DeGeneres.
I did not think of Ellen as a major figure of the 20th century at that time. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
I think there's a difference.
He was a major figure of the 20th century. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because of what I said previously, which is there are certain things that it takes reaching you. I mean, she has a good sense of humor. And that's important I don't listen to people that don't have a good sense of humor, or at least I try not to. So she cut through in a certain kind of way. But when she basically, I think Keith's sort of saying this a little bit, which is, or maybe it was Michael, when something moves from the, I don't know about that, to, yeah. In other words, it becomes more commonplace and understandable emotionally. That has huge impact.
Yep, I think that's true.
I want to say something just to take off from Keith's notion that people are seeing themselves as separate. I think it's more correct to say they see themselves as distinct. There is within every group a whole cultural world. There is Black culture around music and art and literature that is distinct, that comes out of the shared experiences of those people. There's something about Jewish culture. There's something about Irish culture that is distinct and valuable based on the shared experience and history of those people. That doesn't disappear. And there's no reason why people shouldn't identify with the communities that they feel a part of. And you can feel a part of multiple communities. I mean, there is Black culture, there is queer culture, there is Irish culture, there is Egyptian culture, there's Arab culture, there's Iranian culture. It's not all disappearing. We should not simply value individuals. We should also value communities.
No, but I agree with that. On Bill Maher last night, there was a discussion about this, and it was a gay PR guy, and I'm blanking on his name. And he got offended and said, "I don't reduce me down to my sexual preferences." So actually, both things are existing in him at the same time. He's very openly gay. He dresses very flamboyantly. He exudes the fact that he's gay, but he doesn't want to be reduced down to being gay as what defines who he is. And
I think that's right. You don't want to be limited by a definition, but you don't want to be excluded from it either.
Right.
It's not pro homogenization and pro assimilation. If people want to identify with their community or not with their community, that should be up to them. But
Well, are you
but
looking
I think it's
through
important to recognize the value of the communities.
Well,
Yeah,
it's from the point of view of the other. Like, this is mundane, but when I was young and dating, the last good idea, like that I had in my head, I would never want to date an English girl because I liked difference. Difference was a good thing. So to your point about cultural specificity, I dated a woman from Nigeria. I dated a woman from the Punjab. And the difference was fantastic and interesting. One of my best friends was a Vietnamese gay woman. And so embracing difference is a very different thing to staying away from it because you're not the same as that difference. And I think there's this separation happened where embracing difference is hard if you're not one of the community because you're considered to be other. And that I think is wrong. I like embracing difference, not separating difference.
we're really talking about two ends of the same spectrum. One is about the internal cohesion of a group, and the other is the acceptance of that group into the larger society.
Yes.
And I think in this case, the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who identified the 5 stages of grief, comes into play. Because early on, the first steps or the first parts of the 5 stages, first stages, thank you, Dennis, are denial and anger. And you finally get to a point where you've got acceptance. And it strikes me that there's an awful lot within our society, and there always will be, that's moving along that continuum. Not everybody's at the same spot, but there's this place in the middle where Ross calls it bargaining. I called it grifting. Place in the middle where you're not accepting the old stuff and you're not accepting the new stuff exactly yet. And I think we as a society are in the middle of a whole bunch of this stuff, which is part of the reason we have so much I don't know what you would call it, upheaval in society at the moment.
Adjective.
I thought Steve's point about the emotional dimension is super, super important, because when you take something like gay marriage or mixed marriages in quotes, which is not even a phrase anymore because we accept them so much, emotionally society accepts more difference now than probably ever in the history of the human race. And so there are some things like women's rights that you just can't go there and expect to win because it's established. And so I do think we've made massive strides to accepting difference. Somehow or other, we've reached a point at which that may be frozen out of fear of not being accepted. That's what I'm thinking. So the Ted Cruz point where all this started about these cultural wars, it's almost as if the Republicans want to roll things back. The Democrats kind of want to keep things as they are, but who wants to keep things moving forward and go even further forward is hard to find.
Oh, I think that's the far left of the Democratic Party. I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. The Republicans are still trying to repeal the Great Society and the New Deal. Good luck with that. And that's one of the reasons why they're not making any traction in the elections. It's because they're so far removed from the current reality.
Well, they also still think trickle down economics works.
It does, doesn't it?
I think one thing that we have to accept is that we are getting close to the end of the show. So I think we need to
Accept that.
accept it.
Okay, otherwise,
Accept
this is
and
at this
maybe
point,
talk
what I
about-
say is, okay, once around the table.
Once around the table.
Okay,
Except for maybe we can talk about
We're bargaining.
any other shows, because that's always important to me. Any other shows that people are watching that they're really
all right, what,
into?
that can be
Any
a
other
component.
recommendation?
Okay,
I want to hear it. I
yeah.
want to hear it, and your last things to say. How's that?
Well, you're not in charge, but other than
Yeah.
that, it's a good idea.
He thinks I'm not in charge.
Yeah,
And
You let him.
I'm going
I
to
know.
continue with that.
I know that's not.
So, Dennis, last thoughts.
Apropos of nothing except for what Tina was saying, I read Matthew Perry's memoir this week. I had never been much of a fan of Friends, although I thought it was a good show. I just never watched it. And the memoir really wasn't about Friends per se. It was about the god awful struggle of being an addict, and it, in a way, gave me an appreciation for the other that I didn't have before.
Beautiful.
Brent.
Yeah, no, this has been an interesting conversation. I don't know, you might have noticed I went a little quiet there the last 15 minutes, but there's a good reason for that. I just found out that YouTube TV has been running a free preview of NFL Sunday Ticket.
Wow.
In which I got like 6 free games all of a sudden I found out I have access to. So I don't know what you guys are talking about the last 15 minutes.
Wow. Do you have to do anything special to get it, or just go to the game?
Evidently, you just have to
Brent's planning out
just
the
sit
next
there and wait
day.
for the free ticket.
Well,
See,
do
that's
you
what
know?
I don't know.
Oh,
I just
slick.
saw it. Free preview on NFL Sunday Ticket, and look at all these games I have access to now. I don't know
See,
which one to watch.
that fulfills
What
Tina's
you've been trying to do, Keith?
You know, I want to say, I want to say,
I have
one
a
thing.
subscription to it. My kids have 4 games on simultaneously.
I just want to say one thing. That's the way that drug dealers work.
Yeah, they get me all addicted.
The first 4 are free.
There we go. Back to Matthew Perry
That's my
Oh.
point. That's what I was getting at.
and Hunter Biden.
Okay, well, Matthew Perry had the greatest timing since Cary Grant.
Ooh.
He was good. He was
Wow.
good.
Says a lot.
Good.
There was a time back when NBC was doing the upfronts. There was a blackout at one of the upfronts. Literally, the electricity went out at Radio City Music Hall, and so everything stopped. And Matthew Perry went out and did a stand-up routine to keep things going until the electricity came back on. He was unbelievably good. It was amazing. He saved the upfront, which is a big deal if you're in the sales division of a big major network.
And he wasn't really a stand-up guy.
No, he wasn't. But he came out and
He was a good guy, though.
Yeah.
But that's a hard thing to do when that's not your background. But he had a natural talent for sure.
Michael Markman.
Okay, I'll give you 2 shows. And we mentioned one last week, and that is Loman Bass Reeves.
It's on tonight.
And another Sheridan show, Lioness.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could.
So one more thing,
Out of
and
the Lions.
again, one more thing. Please listen to the Dolby Atmos re-release of the Beatles' Red Album, remixed by Giles Martin.
In mono?
No, they used
Atmos.
Peter Jackson demixing software so that he was able to reconstruct really good stereo versions of all the classic mono Beatles singles. It was a little jarring and shocking to hear it the first time.
That's a little overstated. There are about 6 songs per the Red and Blue records each that were remixed using the most recent Peter Jackson technology.
There's a distinction between the Red and the Blue. Most of the songs on the Blue album were recently remixed as part of album re-releases, and they didn't use the Peter Jackson technology. They used other technology to try and roll back and recover the original stems of the multi-track recordings. But the Red album is largely stuff that was not available in good stereo mixes and had to be recovered. And they're all deliciously stereophiled. They may not all use the Peter Jackson technology, but they're all remixed in Dolby Atmos. We've never heard them with this clarity before. The Red album is a shock. The Blue album is not so much a shock. I think most of the remixes on the Blue album consist of a couple of singles and stuff from Magical Mystery Tour. So it's music we have heard before, but you've never heard the Red album singles the way you'll hear them.
Oh,
Well,
Get your headphones on.
deliciously stereophile. That's a term you don't hear every day. So I like that.
Okay. Did we hear from you, Brent? Yes, I think we did.
Yeah, you heard quite enough from me. Yeah.
Dennis.
You already did me too.
Okay.
Keith?
Keith.
Keith is look at that image quality. Keith is looking really, really sharp.
It's my Sony FX3 for those who know what I know. So my wife's in Cape Town because it's her mum's funeral. So we have a family rule, which is I'm not allowed to watch a show unless she's here, because otherwise I'm betraying our marriage. So I haven't watched anything this week, but I did watch the Sam Altman Chat GPT Developer Day announcements on Monday. And I will say maybe next show we should talk about what they announced, because I do think it's an iPhone moment in it being a catalyst for whatever happens next in quite a big way.
You basically said that in your newsletter for the last 2 weeks, right?
This week at least. I can't remember. My memory doesn't go back 2 weeks, so you could be right, but I just
Mine doesn't go back an hour.
Well, speaking of flashbacks, the Meatball, what's that guy's name?
Oh yeah, let's just call him Meatball. We all know 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Rob Reiner.
oh, that meatball.
That guy.
Oh, that Meatball. I thought you meant Meatloaf. I thought you meant Meatloaf.
He's Meathead.
Yeah.
Meathead.
Yeah.
You're right. Meathead he's done a documentary on Albert Brooks.
Oh,
I just watched that last night. It was great.
Yeah. No spoilers.
All right.
So the Albert Brooks, when I was in LA working with the Firesign Theater, there was at UCLA, I think it was, there was a night of comedy, and Cheech and Chong were there, Laurel and Hardy. No, just kidding.
Wow.
The Stones.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, the literal Stones, apparently.
No, that would be the Flintstones.
The Stones.
And there were a bunch of people. I mean, it was fantastic. And small room, never hear about it before or since. And Albert Brooks had just done a film for Saturday Night Live, which was basically his routine called The Famous School for Comedians. Now, you may have seen it. I think Carson ran some of it at one point. Anyway, it's just one of the funniest things ever. And all these funny people are standing around, and Albert Brooks walks into the center of the room and turns on a projector, and the whole crowd was weeping with laughter. He shows you how to throw a pie, for example, is one of the classic routines. And he sort of took the fourth wall of comedy and just completely embraced it. He was like Robin Williams before Robin Williams was Robin Williams. He was
back when Robin Williams was actually Jonathan Winters.
exactly.
Well, Albert Brooks was his own special genius, not just Robin Williams. He's in a different place.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to define for those of us who have been talking about these moments in time or these people that can make a difference. Albert Brooks made a huge difference to the culture of this country and the world.
By the way, he's still alive for anybody out there who we're
That's
talking
right.
like he's
His
still
brother-
here with us.
His brother,
Bob.
Bob Einstein.
Super Dave.
Oh, is it that you talking about the Brooks brothers?
No, I'm talking about.
You mean Trade and Mark?
So his brother
Harpo.
was an amazing artist, but he and Albert, there was something going on there, and they had tremendous respect and love for each other, but they kind of stayed out of each other's lane in an interesting way.
And they're both second generation comedians.
That's right. The father was
father was-
Einstein.
a comedian. Well,
Was also a comedian. As Park Your Carcass.
I never heard that before last night, but the thing that got me, I knew that Bob Einstein and Albert Brooks were brothers, but I didn't put together that his real name is Albert Einstein.
yeah, not Bob, but Albert.
Albert.
No,
Yeah.
Albert Einstein.
I'm always amazed that a father can have that much influence on the kids. Like I have no influence on my kids. The chances that they're going to emulate what I do is like -10.
Oh, but you know what? Your kids are too young.
Well, my little contribution here is to say that I'm really looking forward to seeing this documentary.
It's great. It was really good. All sorts of people in there.
And Keith, you have very nice sons, and they emulate you in your kindness. So
Thank you.
Where is the Albert Brooks documentary? Where is that?
Max.
Sorry,
I'm Max.
I didn't mean to interrupt that wonderful comment from Tina. I'm sorry, Keith.
No, well, I have a 16-year-old, and kindness would not be a word high up the list of words I would use to describe.
It'll pay off later. It'll pay off later.
that one grows up a little bit.
16. That's the right time.
I know you got to me, but there is I have that PBS passport thing. That's one of the things I really do plan on keeping my subscription to, because PBS just puts out a lot of good stuff. They have a series on now. It's called Little Bird. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's based on a true story about this Indian family in Canada who in the 1968, for some ridiculous reason, the government of Canada, the Canadian government, basically took the 3 kids away from the parents. And the story is about the oldest daughter and her kind of journey to find out and reconnect with her family. It's really good. It's kind of hard to watch from time to time.
Is it Indians as in Native Americans or Indians as in India?
Well, they're not. I wouldn't say Native Americans. I guess Native Canadians, because it takes place
Native
in
Native North Americans.
Native North Americans.
right.
Indonesia for the Indonesians. Sorry, Steve, that was for you.
I didn't get it.
Oh, it's from
Must have been from-
it's a fire sign reference.
That's what it was.
I was hoping we'd get through one episode with no fire sign, but there
Yeah.
you go.
Well,
I got
had to
one.
throw it in
I-
there.
wait till
got-
Frank goes to SCAD again, and then there won't be one.
I'm going in February, by the way,
Oh,
for the TV festival. But I'm actually heading out to LA in the first week of December for the Voice Awards. So the Society of Voice Artists, which is the sort of the Academy Awards for voice artists. It's a very interesting group of people. So all these voice people from that do Audible stuff and voiceover people from the networks and people who do commercials. It's just an interesting bunch of people. Many celebrities who, you recognize the voices, but you wouldn't immediately know who it was. I expect will be there. I'm looking forward to
There
that
was a Saturday
Hank
Night Live
Azarian.
skit about voiceovers last night. It was very
Was
funny.
there? I didn't. Oh, God, I have to go back and watch the show.
It's probably one of the most competitive branches of acting.
Yeah.
If you go for a casting call for an on-camera job, they will specify the age, the gender, the ethnic person they're looking for. But if you go for a voice audition, it doesn't matter.
No, and boy,
Doesn't matter how old you are or what race you are.
Doesn't matter.
It was a warm
everybody in the
California
world.
Monday, and the Gillmors were just arising.
In a world.
Thanks for we'll let you know.
So I have just to remind people, other than to make sure you see Killer and Reptile, that you see the finale of the morning show, and that you watch Bosch Legacy.
Oh yeah, I did watch that too.
Yeah,
That
is
was
the
good.
Bosch
And For All Mankind is back.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm going to start watching that tonight. But I'm in the same boat though with Keith. If I watch it without my wife, she gets really angry about it. But it's okay for her to watch it without me. I don't know if that's the same.
Well, that's
with
not
you.
fair. Frank, are there only 10 episodes to Bosch Legacy?
Bosch
Yep.
Legacy is now
10.
over.
They're all 10 out.
Yeah,
What is it, 10?
It's
Yes.
10.
it's 10.
Okay.
So there you go. I got nothing else.
okay.
Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. Bye.
Bye.
See you again. Bye.
Booty.
Chow mein.